Hi everybody, I'm Arwa Damon and we're coming to you live from the epicenter of the protest ground in Baghdad. There is music blaring from different corners. The protesters have basically taken over all of the main roads that lead towards the capital's square. It's called Tahrir Square. And if you had come here just about 6 to 8 weeks ago, this is not what you would have seen. What you would have seen would have been significant, devastating clashes between these young protesters and the Iraqi security forces. So many people died just so Iraqis could hold on to this small little piece of territory. And over here you have this makeshift memorial, one of many that has been set up, and people often come by and pay their respects for those who have passed away. Often they come and we ask them who it is that they're praying for, and they say that they are praying for strangers. They say that they don't necessarily know those who died, but that they want them to be remembered. They feel as if this is the small thing, the only small thing that they can do. And we constantly have parades like this one that come through, oftentimes impromptu. You end up having makeshift. Thank you so much. People here are very supportive of the presence of the media. They want their story told, and you'll see them coming through carrying various banners with the images of those who died, various different efforts to remember those who passed away. No matter what happens, they are not going to be giving up. Some of this is done in a symbolic manner to show everything that has been lost. Sometimes they are actually carrying coffins through here of those who died before they go to bury them. This is a movement, a youth movement mostly, that is determined to, no matter what, not give up this ground. The vast majority of these protesters are among the country's youth, and they are this generation that is sick and tired, fed up with the country's widespread corruption, fed up with its sectarian politics, fed up with its own political parties, fed up with the outside interferences, whether it's the US or Iran. They have been calling repeatedly for Iran to get out, and this is something that is quite striking. It's almost as if you have this barrier of fear that has been broken, with people no longer afraid to speak out against Iran, no longer afraid to speak out against the various militias and political parties that Iran uses as its proxy. And so many people here will come up to you while you're here. They'll say that they want to show you something. They say, come check this out. They have been so desperate to try to get their message out, to try to have the outside world really see what's happening. Oh, marhaba, ahlen, kifkon. I met this little boy earlier. His name is Haidar, and he's 3 years old, and his story is actually so sad because his father passed away here in the first days of these protests. And his uncle who's right there, his uncle brings him here every single day so that he remembers. وانت استاذ كنت تقول لي بتجيبه لهون ليش؟
يذكر ابوه شهيدنا مات.
He brings him here. He brings little Haidar here so that Haidar can always remember his father, so that Haidar, who asks where daddy is all the time, doesn't necessarily know why he's being brought here, because they tell him right now that his father is traveling. But there are so many stories of so much loss throughout these protest grounds. We're just making sure that he doesn't step on our cables. But as I was saying, these squares are filled with stories of people who have lost their friends, of people who have lost their loved ones. But the more they pay this sort of a price, the more determined all of the demonstrators say that they are. And when you talk to them, they'll say that they're not going to give this up. they are going to keep going. And let's see if we can talk to these people in here about why they've come. And a lot of these youth have actually given up their educations. مرحبا. أهلين كيفكن؟ عفوا شو اسمك؟
دنيا. دنيا.
This is دنيا. وانت شو عم تعملي؟ بتدرسي دارسة؟
لا ما ادرس.
لا وليش جيتي لهون؟ We're asking why she's come.
جينا اول شيء نساعد اخواتنا المتظاهرين.
We came first to help our brothers who are here demonstrating.
على مطلب واحد انه كنا نريد وطن.
And we also came for one main reason. We all want a nation. أي نوع من وطن؟
نريد وطن مستقل، وطن احنا نسوي.
We want a nation that is stable, a nation that is one that we are building. شكرا الله يسعدك.
عفوا حبيبتي يلا.
And we'll talk to a few more people. Yes, I'm Arwa Damon coming to you live from Tahrir Square. Now, you just heard Dunya saying she wants a nation that is for the people, and we hear this time and time again. This youth generation wants to upend the status quo when it comes to Iraqi politics. They want to revamp the entire way that the electoral system has been established. They want a new system entirely. In many ways, they actually want to restart this Iraq democracy project from complete scratch, because they say the system that has been put into place is so fundamentally flawed, is so corrupt that it quite simply does not serve them. Unemployment is extraordinarily high. No one really understands how that can be the case, because they know exactly how wealthy their country is. You can see a lot of the wall. There's a lot of anger against the United Nations. A lot of anger actually against the United Nations, because they feel that the United Nations should have been coming in to support them, should have been coming in to end the killing. And that's also a sentiment that is being expressed towards the international community. They don't understand why, after everything that has happened to them, the U.S. invasion, the sectarian bloodshed, the insurgency, the war against ISIS, why the world continues to fail to react to these peaceful demonstrations and help them and help prevent the bloodshed. So we hear a lot of anger and frustration being expressed against them. Let's see if we can. مرحبا. أهلين. السلام عليكم. مرحبا. العفو شو اسمك؟ وسام. This is وسام. قل لي شو قصتك يعني؟ ليش جيت لهون؟ شو عم ترسم؟ رح أترجم أنا بنفس الوقت.
نعم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. جئنا هنا لكي نعتقد أن الفن التشكيلي
He came because they believe that
هو
artwork.
رسالة يجب أن نؤديها بأتم وجه.
They can put their message out through their artwork. وشو الرسالة؟
والغرض من الرسالة هو إرسال الفكرة واقع الحال العراقي الأليم الذي يمر فيه.
The main aim of what they're trying to portray through the artwork is the pain that Iraq is going through.
وبنفس الوقت الفن هو يجعل للإنسان هو الحياة.
And at the same time, artwork is an expression of a person's of life, of their desire to live.
ونجعل عند المتلقي نزرع البهجة والسرور والفرح عند المتلقي، أي نقصد بالناس عندما يرون الرسم يفرحون.
يعني بتكون هيك تجربوا تفرحون
فرحون أحسن.
So what they're trying to accomplish with their artwork, فيك تكمل, with their artwork is to try to inspire people, both to give them something of a sense of joy, to add meaning to it, but also to serve as inspiration. And there is quite an array of artwork throughout this entire area. I'm going to be taking some questions right now. Please bear with me as I do that. One of these questions who is coming in: does Iraq have a functioning government? Well, if you ask everyone here, they would say no. And that is because the government is really hamstrung by its own sectarian policies. They believe that this government needs to be entirely removed from power. You have right now a prime minister who has resigned. There's something of a caretaker government right now that is in place, but the functionality of the government, historically speaking, or lack of functionality, is exactly why all of these people have come out to government in place. It has not been a government that has managed to serve its people and give them a life of dignity. a lot of the questions that we do get from others is why now for these protests, and why now is the population, especially the Shia population, turning against Iran? And we do have one of these questions, which is how is Iran involved in Iraq? So Iran, Iraq's neighbor, did move in and manage to exert a lot of influence after the fall of Saddam Hussein. There are political parties that are backed by Iran. There are militias, armed forces that are backed by Iran. The Shia population mostly until, and in some cases even welcomed it, because remember, you had chaos after the Americans came here in 2003, and then you had the sectarian warfare that broke out, and then you had the fight against the insurgency, and then you had the battle against ISIS. What people will tell you is that right now, none of those excuses exist for Iran's influence, and the government no longer has any excuses to stop being able to function when it comes to ensuring that the population has even the most basic of services. And that's going to be the big challenge for these young protesters moving forward, is whether or not they are actually going to be able to successfully dislodge Iranian influence. Because you see here, the protesters are now holding this terrain, but that's not necessarily the same case when you go further south to places like Najaf and Nasiriyah. There are very, very heavy clashes. There are very there's a very violent reaction that comes from the Iraqi security forces. Another question we're getting is, are there police nearby? Here in Baghdad, there are police. There is some security force on the outskirts of this. They are no longer coming in and attacking this area, but a bit further down, maybe like a 2 to 3 minute drive, you have what is the de facto front line, because what the protesters are trying to do is secure as much territory as they can to keep the pressure up on the that the government is forced to fulfill its promises. You're from Nasiriyah? Hi, this gentleman is from Nasiriyah, which is what I was just talking about.
أهلا وسهلا بكم في ساحة التحرير التي تعتبر الآن الوطن الصغير للعراق.
This is now being considered sort of the small nation of Iraq. هلا وضع كثير صعب.
أنا منذ أكثر من أسبوعين موجود هنا مع شباب التحرير الذين يحاولون أن يوصلون أكثر من رسالة للمجتمع الدولي ولكل الدول المحيطة والدول الإقليمية بأننا بأن هؤلاء الشباب الذين ترينهم شباب يصنعون الحياة ويصنعون الجمال.
These young people, they are the ones. شكرا كثير. These youth that you're seeing here, he's telling us, they are the ones who are standing up against the guns. They are the ones. Excuse me. He is saying that are going to sort of bring in this new era of democracy. They're hoping real democracy that will usher in the next generation. And you can see, as we just start to wrap up, they are out here every day. People come all the time, and they are expressing themselves in so many different ways. And there's one thing that they will all insist on. They're not leaving. The Prime Minister may have resigned. There may be a caretaker government. They have so much more that they are determined to force the government to do, because they refuse to return to the status quo. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Arwa Damon in Tahrir Square, and this was our live broadcast on Facebook.